Tomorrow we can drive around this town, bitter yenta sporting our frowns, my big red head begging to hide my plastic face. Hey jealousy, hey jealousy, oh jealousy was the special guest yesterday morning on The View. And the yentas, I don't think they're the only ones jealous here. I do sense a little bit of jealousy coming from Geraldo Rivera as well. At 80 years old with a television career that spanned, 40, maybe 50 years, Geraldo is finally being put out to pasture. Now, I'm not too familiar with what's been happening behind the scenes at Fox News, but apparently, Geraldo and Greg Gutfeld have not been getting along. There's been tension on the set of The Five, which is not only the most popular show on Fox News, it's one of the most popular shows on television. One of the reasons for the popularity of The Five is the presence of Greg Gutfeld. Greggy also has the top show in late night television. Geraldo is framing this narrative that it was his decision to step away from the number one show on television, or one of the top shows on television, but I ain't buying it. The only person I've ever known to walk away from being number one is Jerry Seinfeld. When you're in the business of television, you don't just volunteer to walk away from a number one show. If management at Fox was responsible for this decision, this was an easy call. On one side, you got a dude in the prime of his media career who can easily give you another 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years. He's consistently the number one show in late night TV. On the other side, you got a nicely polished fossil. But credit to Geraldo Rivera, the dude looks great to be 80 years old, but I think it's safe to say he's on the 18th hole of his media career. His best days were behind him years ago. Now, that is just a brief synopsis on the situation between the two G's, Greg and Geraldo, which, for those who aren't fluent in Spanish, I think Geraldo translates to Gerald, maybe Gene. Who gives a shit? His career's over at this point. But throughout my summary, I did not pretend like I didn't know the identities of Greg and Geraldo. Both of these men have been on television for decades. Hell, Geraldo, he's been on TV since before I was born. I can't say the same, though, for my lovely yentas on The View. No! My yentas, they did their best yesterday morning to produce a segment filled with woke comedy. It's not like they had to try very hard. I laugh hysterically every time I see Big Red on TV. It never gets old to me, watching those shoulders trying to balance the King Kong-sized head of Joy Behar. It never gets old, hearing the new music of the Whoopee Cushion. The other day, she performed Fart in the Wind, a remix of the Elton John classic Candle in the Wind. Yesterday morning, though, the yentas, they were discussing the catfight between the two G's. The Cushion opened the segment with her usual combination, whiskered face followed by thick, wet flatulence. The panel could not even make it through 30 seconds, half a minute, before the hypocrisy started flowing. Watch for yourself.
Well, he has to sit there with, Janine and the rest of them. It's hard to sit there with these people who are spewing lies every day. And, by the way, they always say that they quit. I don't know anything about that show, but I said I quit years ago when they fired me.
Really? You can't be serious. Big Red claims it would be difficult to sit on a panel stuck between people who are spewing lies every day. Is that not the very definition of The View? This entire panel is allergic to the truth. Lying is one of the primary symptoms of OMB. Orange Man bad. Joy Behar, professional liar, but she is sitting between two of the best in the business. Whoopi pretending to be a Goldberg and the radiant son Hostin. You know how I know Big Red is a liar? She just fucking admitted it. You just heard her say it. Years ago when ABC cut my woke welfare, I told everyone I quit. I told them I cursed out Bob Walters. I got in the face of Rose O'Donnell. I quit this bitch. But it wasn't true. They fired my dumb ass. They were tired of paying for red hair dye and weekly facial surgery. Now, to be fair, There was a nugget of truth exposed during this segment. One tiny little polished nugget that escaped from the woman who chooses to identify with 3 names. It's not enough for her to just be called Alyssa or Farrah. No, no, no. I am Alyssa Farrah Griffin. The truth accidentally slipped from AFG when she was comparing The View to The Five. There's just no comparison here between these two shows. The only thing these two shows have in common is the inclusion of "the" in the title. AFG used that remaining brain cell to explain the differences between the two shows. Watch for yourself.
That show is kind of the reverse of this, where it's like all right-wingers and then like one liberal.
Isn't it a copycat of this show?
Kind of. And I love this girl, Jessica Tarlov. She's the token Democrat on the show. She actually really holds her own.
It's like 10 people.
I don't know that Geraldo's going to make a big difference. But my broader issue right now is this. It's like, people should be able to disagree and have different politics and still get along and have respect for one another. I feel like that's such a lost art in our time right now.
Okay, so The Five has 4 normal people and 1 Democrat. That is true. But let me ask you something. How is The Five the reverse of The View? In order for that to be the case, The View would have to have 4 Democrats and 1 normal person. Who's the normal person? Who's the conservative on The View? Well, KC, that's easy. It's Alyssa Farrah Griffin. Really? We must be watching different shows. The only thing I see on The View are 5 nonsensical yentas who identify with the letter S. Shit fuck. To her credit, though, AFG did say something right. I agree with her assessment that we should be able to have political disagreements, but still get along with each other, still respect each other. But how many times have we seen these lovely ladies not get along with their political opponents? Just 3 months ago, we saw the whoopee cushion and AFG fighting live on the air. Didn't Meghan McCain quit this show because she felt ostracized by her fellow yentas? The View is the prime example of not getting along with your political opponents. Now, the discussion, it eventually moved to Greg Gutfeld. You know, when you're in business, doesn't matter what type of business that you're in, one of the things that you're going to be familiar with are your competitors. I remember back when I was in management and industrial sales, I was very familiar with my competition. I knew their pricing, I was familiar with their business model. That industry, like most industries, is very incestuous. Not sexually, though. Don't get excited, Mike Freeman. You are not going to lose your virginity if you start hitting the streets selling thick industrial tubing. Just like you do now with the lightsaber, you'll end up figuring out a way to use the tubing on yourself. But competing businesses and industrial sales, they buy from each other when needed. When you're in the industry, you know a lot of the people who work at competing businesses, competing companies. Now, I've never worked in TV or the media, but I can tell you with almost certainty that it is the same thing in that business. Stephen Colbert is familiar with Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy the Kimmel is familiar with Travis Noah in ways that we don't want to imagine. Now, even though The View is not on during the same time as The Five or Greg Gutfeld's late night show, their shows are still competing. They're similar genres. Greg Gutfeld makes fun of the yentas on The View almost as much as I do. Now, you would think this panel of beauties are familiar with Greg Gutfeld. Not if you were to believe the words of Sun Hostin and Big Red Joy Behar, which I don't. Yesterday morning, Sun and Red, they tried to convince their audience of lonely, disheveled men pretending to be women that they didn't know who Greg Gutfeld was. Greg Gutfeld? Who is that? Is that the woman who was just named Miss California? I love that woman. I could not stop my waterfall when I saw her in that tuck-friendly bathing suit. I dream of being a whisker on that face just so I could touch those beautiful fake lips. Watch for yourself.
Greg Gutfeld's come after him really personally. I don't watch the show that much, but I've seen enough.
Who is that?
Greg Gutfeld's one of the hosts of The Five who, if I don't have anything nice to say, I generally don't say anything at all. I would just say this, his show should be called Kat Timpf, not Gutfeld, because she's the funny one on it. But he's been very harsh and critical of Geraldo, and I could see why he'd be like, I don't need to do this. I've had a long career. Like, I'm just going to go and enjoy myself.
Well, I was briefed. They said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time.
Who is he? Well, really, who is he?
I don't watch watch the show.
He has a show.
I don't watch the
never
show.
heard of him.
Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
That was some classic woke comedy right there. Joy Behar wants to joke that Greg Gutfeld is obsessed with her? I could not see an 80-year-old virgin fantasizing about Joy Behar. Son Hostin, she claims that she doesn't watch Greg Gutfeld, but somehow, some way, she knows that he talks about Joy Behar on a regular basis. Now, if you don't watch the show, if you're not familiar with Greg Gutfeld and who he is, how would Son Hostin know that? Well, KC, she said that she was briefed. Yeah? So? You gotta read between the lines here. Son Hostin was informing her lonely followers that she was off limits today. She was wearing briefs. She was not in the mood to play Spin the Cucumber. If producers on The View were going to brief anyone about the fact that Greg Gutfeld makes fun of Big Red all the time, why would they tell Son Hostin? Why wouldn't they just tell Joy Behar herself? I mean, she's literally sitting right there. You mean to tell me producers told Son about it, but they didn't tell Joy Behar? Someone please make that make sense. Now, I cannot get inside their minds, nor do I want to be inside the gigantic head of Joy Behar. I mean, you can get lost in that thing, but I'm wondering if jealousy may be playing a small role here. The Five consistently dominates The View in the ratings. The Five hovers around 3 million viewers on cable. They're on at 5 in the afternoon, which is typically a death slot on television. The View is on network TV. They don't come close to 3 million viewers. This show hasn't averaged 3 million in over 2 years. So far this month, The View's averaging around 2.2 million. So maybe, just maybe, jealousy's playing a small part here. Why else would they pretend to not know who Greg Gutfeld is? Your guess is as good as mine, but as much as this show absolutely disgusts me, as much as I cannot stand The View, I do have to give these ladies credit. And to be fair, I am not their target demo. The View's not looking to attract 38-year-old men who refuse to display their proper pronouns. The target audience of The View is lonely housewives, bored soccer moms, women with beards who fantasize about WNBA dump divers. That's who they're going after. And the Yentas, they have that demographic locked down. Somehow, this show is still the #1 show on daytime TV. It boggles my mind. I will never understand it. Now, I could understand it when Barbara Walters was leading this show. Barbara Walters was universally respected. She was an actual journalist. I might not agree with Rosie O'Donnell, but at least she was entertaining. This current panel on The View, there is nothing informative or entertaining about them. What is so entertaining about watching a group of women who all agree with each other? What is so entertaining about watching Alyssa Farah Griffin trying so desperately to be accepted by 3 yentas and a whoopee cushion? I don't get it. I don't get it. But give me your thoughts. Son Hostin, Joy Behar, they pretend like they don't know who Greg Gutfeld is. Are you buying it? Are you biting into that shit sandwich? Do you think jealousy could be playing a role here? You let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.